Okay, so today's daf is daf Lamed Daled, and we got up to Achada Ketani. So let's just review so that we can have a soft takeoff. There's a machlokas between Rabbi Ami and Rav Asi with regard to Hashavas Aveda in the case of Madir Hano Michaver. And the issue revolves around the case where the Baal HaVeda, we called him Shimon yesterday, if you remember, takes a neder and he's matir hano from the machzir. So we have the machzir, we'll call him Ruven, and we have the Baal HaVeda, we'll call him Shimon. So in the case where the Baal HaVeda has an Isur Hano from the machzir, that's poshut. Then the machzir is just simply giving back to the Baal HaVeda that which is his, and that's not called being mahaneh. But what happens if there was a reciprocal neder in which the machzir took a neder not to have hano from the Baal HaVeda? And here we get into the sugya of Pruta de Rav Yosef. If we assume that Pruta de Rav Yosef is something to be reckoned with, then what happens is, since the machzir took an Isur neder from the Baal HaVeda, then if he returns the Aveda, then during the time of his askus with the Aveda, we apply the principle of a osek b'mitzvah potem in a mitzvah, and if he's potem from pruta of an ani, and therefore the machzir will be getting hanoah from the Baal HaVeda. The other Amora would argue that Pruta Rav Yosef lo shchiach. It's not something that we have to really consider. What are the chances that just at the moment that he is being metapel with the Aveda, that moment the Oni comes knocking on the door? And here on the top of Daf Lamed Daled, as we saw yesterday, the Gemara quotes the Mishnah. And the Mishnah speaks about the case where there's a makom, there's a neighborhood, a community in which the minhag, the accepted custom, is that the machzir Aveda gets reimbursed for all his lost time, and the machzir Aveda should be able to be tovea from the Baal HaVeda payment. And in that sense, what's happening is that if the Baal HaVeda would pay the machzir, then obviously the machzir is getting hanoah from the Baal HaVeda. But let's assume that the machzir is not interested in demanding, in this particular case, that which is rightfully his, namely the payment and the compensation for his efforts to be machzir Aveda. So in that sense, the machzir Aveda is giving hanoah to the Baal HaVeda, not just because he's returning that which is his. That per se might not be considered hanoah, but the fact that he is mevater, that he's waiving his rights to collect that money, namely the money that not l'mol eschar, and that's what the Mishnah says, b'mokum shenot l'mol eschar. How do we circumvent the problem that now the Baal HaVeda is getting hanoah? So the Mishnah establishes tipo hanoah lehegdish. The amount of money that would have been paid that's coming to the machzir, let's call it 1,000 shekel. So that amount of money should be taken by the Baal HaVeda and dedicated to hegdish. So that in that sense, the Baal HaVeda is not getting any hanoah from the machzir. So the Gemara says, Bishleima, that makes sense if you hold that the heter in our Mishnah of Hashavas Aveda applies even in the case where the machzir took a neder not to be nene from the nechasim of the Baal HaVeda. And in such a case, we're matir, and Hainu Liktani, now we understand what the Mishnah says in the Sefer, that Mokum Shenot L'Eschar people hano lehegdish, because the machzir has an isur of taking hanoah from the Baal HaVeda and collecting his compensation, his wages. And in that sense, the Mishnah addresses this question that in event that the Machzir waives his rights to collect that compensation, the Baal HaAveda has to dedicate that sum of money, we called it 1,000 shekel, to Hegdish. Elaman Diomar. But if you're going to go with the approach, then in a case where there was a reciprocal neder, in which the Machzir took a neder not to be neder from the nechasim of the Baal HaAveda, then according to this particular Amora, he's not allowed to return the Aveda because of Pruta de Rav Yosef. Is Hamai people are no lehegdesh? What is this statement in the Mishnah that people are no lehegdesh when the Machzir in this case is not even allowed to return the Aveda? When the Machzir is allowed to return the Aveda, then you could talk about what should the Baal HaAveda do with that money that he gained. But now we're saying that in a case where the Machzir took an Isa Neder from the Baal HaAveda, then he cannot, and he's not allowed to be Machzir Aveda because he gets Hano by doing so because of Pruta of Yosef. Then what are you talking about? People Hano Lehegdesh. And the Gemara answers Achada Ktani. So this is where we start today with the two words that finished up yesterday's sugya. Achada Ktani. So you'll see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down from the top. Achadat Ktani. So the Gemara is now arguing that according to that opinion, when it says in the Sefer people are no lehegdesh, it's not because both of them, the Baal HaAveda and the Machzir, have an Isa. The Baal HaAveda is also to give it to the Machzir. The Machzir is not allowed to receive it. But rather Achadat Ktani. It's only vis-a-vis one of the two that the Mishnah is addressing its halacha, meaning the Mishnah now is totally exclusively focused on the Baal HaAveda. And when the Mishnah says that the Baal HaAveda has to pay that 1,000 shekel to Hegdesh, it's not because the Machzir is not allowed to have Hana from the Baal HaAveda, but rather because the Baal HaAveda is not allowed to have Hana from the Machzir, which he does in effect have in a place where they receive schar, and the Machzir waives his rights to that schar. And then the Baal HaAveda is getting benefit from the Machzir HaAveda, because the Machzir is being mochel on the schar that's coming to him. And to offset that Hana, the Baal HaAveda has to dedicate that sum of money to Hegdish. So we're talking about a situation in which the Machzir HaAveda, although he has legal rights to demand compensation for his tircha, but nevertheless he waives those rights. And the Mishnah is telling us that in that case, the Baal HaAveda will be nene from the fact that the schar that he would have paid the Machzir is sitting in his bank account. So therefore, he should dedicate it to Hegdish. Now, what we're going to see in the reading of the Gemara is the girsa of the Ran, Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah, Makom Shenot Leno Les Schar People Ano Lehegdesh. So Gemara says, Bishleim Laman the Omer. I understand, according to the first opinion that we had, that the Mishnah was matir, hashavas aveda, only in the case of b'nichsei ha'machzir asura Baal HaAveda, where the Baal HaAveda took a neder that he won't enjoy any benefit from the machzir. And in such a case, the chayfetz, which now is being returned to the Baal HaAveda, it's mutter for the machzir to return it to the Baal HaAveda because he's just getting back that which is his. However, according to this Mandi Omar, that's the case where the Mishnah was lenient and permitted the hashavah. Avol de Baal HaAveda surah al-machzir, if there was a reciprocal neder in which Ruvain took a neder not to be neder from the Baal HaAveda Shimon, lo mahader because of Pruta Rav Yosef, the Machzir is not permitted to return the Aveda, then we understand very well how to diktani mokum shenot l'no eschar people are no lehegdish. That in the case where the Machzir is being mavater and mochel on his rights to collect what? To collect his compensation. So then it's necessary for the Baal HaVeda to offset that hana by dedicating that exact sum of money that he would have paid as schar to the Machzir for Hegdish. Because again, our Mishnah, according to that Mandi Omar, is telling us that that in a case where the Madir, which means the Machzir, took a neder from the Baal HaVeda, then we have that stipulation in the Mishnah that the Hashavas Aveda will only be allowed if the following condition is met, and that is that the Baal HaVeda dedicates that money that he would have paid his wages to Hegdish. El affecting Gemara, Leman Diomafi Lubinixea Baal HaVeda Asum El Amasin Nami Meheder, if we're not Choshesh for Pruta Rav Yosef. And therefore, even though the Machzir took a neder not to be nene from the nechasim of the Baal HaVeda, so that Reuven took a reciprocal neder that he won't get any benefit from Shimon's nechasim, nevertheless, the Mishnah would allow Hashavas HaVeda in this case, because we're not concerned with Pruta Rav Yosef. Pruta Rav Yosef lo shchia. So now when we get to the Sefer, and it says people are no lehegdesh, and we're talking about even a case where the Machzir took a neder not to be neder from the nechas of the Baal HaVeda, and yet he's still permitted to return the Aveda because we're not koshish for Pruta Rav Yosef, is amai people are no lehegdesh. Why do we have to find some sort of way of circumventing the law and guaranteeing that the Baal HaVeda doesn't get any hana, when we just finished saying that in such a case, the Baal HaVeda can hold on to the schar to himself. Why? Because you're allowed, in this case, to have hana. So the Gemara answers again, achara ktani. The Mishnah is only talking about one particular scenario. In a case where the Masechet took a neder imposing an Isur Hana on the Baal HaVeda, that the Baal HaVeda shouldn't be neder from him, then obviously the Baal HaVeda, if he holds on to the schar, is being neder from the Masechet, and the Masechet generated an Isur neder on the Baal HaVeda. So in such a case, the Mishnah is talking about the only way possible to circumvent this prohibition and this violation of the Isur Hana of the Neder, and the Baal HaVeda is going to have to make sure that he dedicates this money to Hegdesh, because if he's ma'akid the schar for himself, then he'll violate the Neder. Ika de Masni Bahai Lishna. Now we have a different formulation of the Machlokes Shin Rabbi Ami Rabbi Asi. Again, we don't know who holds what, but in any event, Bahai Lishna Pligiba. This is how we have the transmission of the Machlokes with regard to Matzah Avidos. Rabbi Ami Rabbi Asi Chan Omar Lo Shonu. According to one opinion, the leniency of the Mishnah allowing Hashavas Aveda Elok Shenichsev Al Aveda Asurim Ala Machzir, where the Baal HaVeda took a neder and he imposed that neder on the Machzir, and even though again the Machzir is now benefiting from the Aveda, from the Chefta of the Baal HaVeda, insofar as he doesn't have to pay an oni, Mishum de Pruta Rav Yosef Lo Shchia. Avol nichse machzir asurim al Baal HaVeda. If Reuven took a neder and he imposed the neder on Shimon, the Baal Aveda, that Shimon would not benefit from him, lo mahadir, then it's also to be machzir Aveda mishum dekomahanile, because by giving the returning the object that was lost to the Baal Aveda, he's being mahana him, even though again he's only returning that which is his. But in Hashavas Aveda, the Mudar Hana is getting a full-fledged Hana by re-obtaining, if you will, or repossessing his object. V'chad Omar no. According to the other Tana, according to the other Amora, Nichse Machzir Asur Mal Baal Aveda, in a case where the Baal Aveda is not allowed to be nene from the Nichse HaMachzir, then Mutter. According to this opinion, he's just simply getting back that which is his. You could call it similar to what we learned yesterday about Poreach Chovu Shel Chavero, Mavriach Harim Nichse Chavero. He's just making sure that the Baal HaAveda should not suffer any loss, but he's not giving him a positive hana. Tonight we learned in the Mishnah, in our Mishnah, make sure that the Baal HaAveda dedicates the equal amount of money to Hegdesh, the money that he would have paid for Schar to the Baal HaAveda, Bishlema, Leman di Omar, Afilu b'nichsei machzir asur Baal HaAveda mahader. According to that man, the who says that even in a case where the one second. Where Ruvain took a neder, imposed the neder on Shimon, the Baal HaAveda, that he should not receive any benefit from him. He's allowed to return it in our Mishnah, because he's simply giving back to him that which is rightfully his, and that's not considered Nesinas Hana. So Hainu Dimitaretz Makom Shenotlin, etc., etc. Now we understand very well how we'll interpret the Sefer of our Mishnah in a location where they receive compensation to offset the loss of the Tircha of Hashavas Aveda. And this would apply in two different scenarios, whether it's Nichsei Machzir Asur Baal HaAveda, which means that the Baal HaAveda is not allowed to benefit from the Machzir, which means he's got to make sure that he doesn't benefit from the fact that the Machzir waived his rights to compensation. That's why he dedicates the money, the wages, to Hegdesh. According to that other Manyom who says that when Ruvain, the Machzir, imposes an Isur Hana onto Shimon, the Baal HaAveda, that's called Nichsei HaMachzir Asurim Lo Mahader, because we consider it as if returning someone's object to him is a great Hana, it's a serious, valid Hana. Is Hechi Mataretz, how is he going to interpret the Sefer of HaMishnah? Mokum Shenotlin Schar, he has to be Magdashit to Hegdesh. The Mishnah is only talking about a case where there's a one-way neder, where the nechasim of the Baal HaAveda are asurim on the Machzir, and they were saying that the Machzir is not benefiting from the Nichsei Baal HaAveda because Putu Rav Yosef lo Shchia. But in that case, why does the Ma'abed have to dedicate? Why does the Baal HaAveda have to dedicate that equivalent sum of schar to Hegdesh? He should be able to hold it for himself, pocketed for himself. In a case again where the matzah refuses to take that compensation, he's allowed to be nene from the matzah, right? Because we're talking only about a case where the neder went in one direction, but had there been a neder in the other direction, he's allowed to be nene from the matzah. And the Gemara says, Kasha, we don't have an answer to this question.